like 3 of my polycore tanks cost as much as a 20,000 gallon metal Pioneer tank. So you need to start looking at the economy. Some of these tanks, the cisterns require special foundation like concrete. Well, that just runs the cost up. The other thing you need to do is how far is all this from the house? Like where we live, if I go more than 2 inches in the ground, I'm in rock. So everything is rock solid. So to put in a 4-inch line underground costs about $7 or $8 per linear foot. So if you were to set your cistern way off somewhere, you're just adding cost to it. So yeah, you may have to, but that's something you just need to look at. And one of the things you might do if you're building, particularly if you're building a new house, get the builder when he's out there with his equipment to do your pad site. Rather than if you hire somebody to put in a rainwater system, they're going to have to rent the same equipment to do that. So if you can do it while they're building, you can save a little money. Okay. One of the things, and these are things I found out, and I'm telling you don't do. Once it stops raining, there should be no water standing in the lines feeding the cisterns. Now my lines all go underground and they pop back up, which means I've got water laying in the lines. So I had to go and get a jackhammer, and go underground and intersect the pipes at the lowest point, and I tapped into them. And I've got a bleed valve because like where we're at, the oak blooms in the spring, if you just get a little bit of rain, enough to get them down in the piping system, but not necessarily get them up in your filters, and it sits there, it stinks to high heaven. Well, next time it rains, it's going to flush all that stuff into your cisterns. That's why you need to have either a bleed or fix it where you don't have that to start with. These are things I learned that y'all need to know. If you have multiple cisterns, all the cistern tops have got to be the same height. Now, my 6 tanks are all the same height. The little tanks that I added, they're about 2 feet shorter than the big tanks. So when I put them in, their tops are all the same height as the others. The reason being that you're going to drain your system down to whatever the lowest overflow point is. So and people will say, well look, I got a tank up here and I got tanks down here. I'll just hook them together. Well, how do you do that? You're going to drain that tank down to whatever the lowest overflow is. All of them need, within an inch or so, but they need to be the same elevation. Okay. And this is just common sense. Make sure that what you're sitting your cisterns on is smooth. And I put sand under mine, of course sand. But you don't want rocks or roots or stuff sticking up. Because when you get a tank full of water, like 5,000 gallons times 8.33 pounds per gallon, that's a huge weight. It'll pump a hole right to the bottom. So make sure it's smooth. Good topsoil is fine. Okay, people have asked me about protecting the freezing. Well, I don't really worry too much. I don't think we could ever freeze a 5,000 gallon tank unless it was 0 for a month or 2. So don't worry about that. The latent heat in there is enough. But like for your water hydrants and all, yeah, you need to protect that. And I've got built into our system where I turn off the yard water inside, go outside, and I've got a drain valve down by the pump house. And since we live on a hill, it drains all the water down, so I don't have any water in the yard to freeze to start with. Okay, check the different types of cisterns. Some of them require special pad sites. Typical cisterns are poly tanks, galvanized steel with liners, concrete tanks with liners, wood tanks on it. It's very important that these tanks are light tight. You don't want light getting in these tanks because it grows algae. Not that algae is bad, just you don't want algae in your tanks. One of the things, if you're going to do it yourself, check around for prices. You can go find the same tank at 2 or 3 different places, and it's not unusual to find a $300 to $500 difference in a tank price for like a $1,000 tank. And I don't want to mention people, but just check around. Okay. I've checked around. Okay, if you decide you want your system installed by a company, be sure you get a written estimate of what they do. I've seen some that said, yeah, we'll put it in. And when they got through, the feed lines from the house to the cistern was just laying on top of the ground. Well, who wants a 4-inch pipe laying in their front yard? I don't. So be sure you get in writing what they're going to do, and typically this is what it should involve. Maybe your gutters, your feed lines, your tanks, your pressure tanks, all that. And again, if this is a new house, they could be done by the builder could help on some of the pad site construction. And it's recommended that the installer be an accredited professional through the American Rainwater Catchment System Association. They have courses, generally a 2-day course, to get your accreditation for that. So at least these people have a working idea of what should be and how it should be designed and put in. Okay. Families dependent on rainwater harvesting systems tend to have a lifestyle that recognizes resource conservation. Benefits of rainwater harvesting include less flooding, less erosion, eliminates another well. That's what it does. Some of the ways, and we've talked about this, to increase the efficiency is low flow plumbing fixtures. Use the lowest practical water pressure necessary. And there, what I'm saying is, like when you turn on the faucet to wash your hands, you may be putting out a gallon a minute or so. If you double the water pressure, you're going to double the amount coming out. So instead of using a gallon to wash your hands, you may use 2. Well, you're wasting water. You know, you can go on that. Okay, consider plumbing the home to capture and reuse gray water for outdoor landscaping. Like we've got an aerobic system, and the last phase of an aerobic system is clean water, not drinking water, but it's clean, it doesn't smell, and we use it for the lawn. Okay, and we roughly mentioned this a while ago. Significant water saving can be realized by utilizing plants, trees, and grasses that are native to the area and drought tolerant. Applying a manure compost several times a year reduces the water demand considerably. Organic fertilizers seem to work better than chemical fertilizers on the outdoors. Typically, large landscape areas need to be shied away from just due to the amount of water they use. But again, you can accommodate that in your design, but you have to design for it. When gutters are installed, make sure that the people that put these gutters in, we have experience with this. We got seamless aluminum gutters. We've got hardy. Everything outside of our house is hardy, rocker, metal roofs. But when they screwed the little standouts that hold the gutter up into the hardy, well, hardy is hard. It's concrete. Well, they put this little sharp self-tapping screws. When we got an inch of ice on our roof here a couple of years ago, it started sliding down and the gutters got heavier and heavier, and the little fingers that slip under the out part of the gutter started straightening them out and the gutters started sagging. Well, that was a mess. We had to redo all the gutters, so just watch. We went back in there now and gone through the hardy and the 2x6 behind it. Just make sure they anchor the gutters down properly. Okay. After your system's installed, you need to go ahead and get a bacteria test. It's just a small amount of water, but it's in a sealed container. And we can get it in Kerrville at the Upper Guadalupe River Authority. They've got a test lab. And in Comfort, they have a test lab at the water district there. And it costs between $15 and $20. Now, the other thing, out of curiosity, a quart bottle, it costs, I think it's about $75. But a while ago when I was showing you how much iron and sulfur and all that stuff in your water, that's where that comes from. So both of those tests together are less than $100. Because if you were to find there's something in the water, you need to find out what's causing it. In other words, if you particularly got E. coli, which comes from either animal or human waste, and like around our house, we do not feed the birds. I rarely ever see a bird on our roof. Well, that's the way we want it. Although the UV takes care of all that, I just do not have it there to start with. But if you do, the UV will take care of it. And it's a good idea to install water meters just to find out how much water you usually use. Now, you don't have to read it every morning like I do, but occasionally you ought to read it and just see. You'd be surprised how much waste there is when people use water. Okay, it's important on the overflow, because when these cisterns are full, they're full, and the water's going to have to go somewhere. So you need to make provisions so where it does go, it doesn't cause erosion. So you need to make that. Okay, in areas of rural fire protection, you can get to your tanks fairly easy. You can have them put a fitting on there that hooks up to the fire truck. Now, for those of us that live in the country, if you can't put the fire out in your house in the first 5 minutes, you pretty well lost the house, because by the time the volunteer fire department gets there 30 minutes to an hour later, it's gone. If you've got enough water there, because 3,000 gallons, 6,000 gallons worth of water would go a long ways in putting out a fire. Okay. Some thoughts before installation. Double check, if you're going to borrow money to build your house, double check with a lending institution that they understand you're not going to have a well, you're going to have rainwater harvesting only. Some of them still want you to have a well. They won't loan money if you don't.